everybody, it's Robbie here from Purposeful Homeschool, and if you're not familiar with me or my channel, I have 3 boys. One has graduated, he's 20. The middle one is 17, he's going to be a senior this next year, and my youngest is 9, he will be in 4th grade. So I'm doing this video because I know there's an influx of homeschoolers into the community because of what's going on in our world right now. I know there's lots of reasons that people are coming into the homeschool community. Maybe they have immunocompromised kids, or they don't feel like the kids are going to benefit from the mandates, or they are forced into virtual learning through the school and they don't want to do that. So whatever your reasons are, I just want to be an encouragement to you and just kind of let you know that I was a reluctant homeschooler myself. We were sort of thrust into this for reasons beyond our control. And so I can relate to how you feel. I remember how overwhelming it was because our kids had been in private school. I have 2 older kids that started homeschooling, or we started on this homeschooling journey, I should say, when they were in 5th and 8th grade. Because we did start with a virtual charter, so we didn't start off with homeschooling. But they'd been in private school, and it was a school that we had planned on graduating them in. And putting any additional family members, any additional children that came along in that school too. We had no desire to leave the area or the school. And then my husband was became unemployed, and we couldn't afford to keep them in private school anymore. And so the state we lived in at the time, their school system was ranked 49th in the nation in terms of public schooling. And so I didn't feel comfortable putting our kids in public school there. So we did start with a virtual charter, and halfway through the school year, they decided that we needed to be pulled out of the curriculum and they needed to prepare for the standardized tests, a whole semester for standardized test prep. And so never again would I do that again. But we ended up moving because that's where employment led us, or honestly, I feel like God led us here. Or after we planned the move here and he got a job here, we found out my mother-in-law had stage 4 cancer, and we had moved or looked for jobs in this area so we could be closer to her. Anyway, we figure if we're gonna have to move, we might as well be close to family. And turns out it was a God thing. So we ended up homeschooling after we moved here. So I know what it's like to be thrust into this. Our lives were completely turned upside down. I mean, we loved the school that our kids were in. They were thriving there, but I just didn't feel comfortable putting them in the public school system there. And then once we got here, again, coming off virtual schooling, I just wanted to give homeschooling a shot. So anyway, long story short, here we are. This is our 8th year since this journey began. And so I just wanted to encourage you. You can do this. Honestly, you can. I'm not going to go through the legalities of homeschooling. Every state is different. And I'm actually going to link to a video below that goes into more of the technical things that you need to consider. The things that you need to really consider going into homeschooling. If you're needing some direction there, then I highly recommend this video. I can't remember the name of her channel because it's new to me, but this video is really well done and really well laid out, so I will link it below. This video is going to go into more abstract reasons why you can do this. I mean, there's some practical stuff here, but it's not, you need to do this and this and this and check on this and go here and look at this and join this group and do this. It's not going to be about that. So anyway. One thing that surprised me going into this is that after having my kids in private school, we had to get up, we had to make sure uniforms were clean, we had to get their lunches done, and my kids were on a very strict diet for health reasons. They had, it's an anti-inflammatory diet, and I have to cook everything from scratch. And so coming up with lunches was really something I had to plan in advance. And so that could be stressful. The school, because it was a private school, wasn't in our area. They didn't ride a bus. We had to take them. It was 25 minutes away. And then there was, homework and projects, and again, making sure that they get enough sleep and they go to bed early enough and blah, 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 blah. It actually caused quite a bit of stress. I mean, yeah, I had that stretch of time during the day to myself, but there was a lot of stress involved in the whole private schooling thing. And what was interesting to me is how laid back and less stressful it was to school them at home. I can't explain it, because you didn't have the time constraints, you didn't have the schedule, you had a lot more flexibility. Yes, you're schooling your kids, and yes, there can be stress with that, kids don't want to comply, there's a little bit of an adjustment period for the fact that the kids are now seeing you as not just their mom, but their teacher. And vice versa. You're not just now their mom, you're their teacher, and so looking at them through the teacher lens can be a little bit different sometimes than looking at them through the parent lens. So there are adjustments, and there are certain stressors that come up with the whole homeschooling thing that won't come up when they're in school. But overall, I found it less stressful to teach my kids at home, shockingly, but I did. Some of the projects that they used to have to do, oh my goodness, I do not miss those. I don't miss those. Literally what they were is the parents' projects. You would go to the school and they'd have them all on display, and you'd see these elaborate, beautifully done things, and then my kids would come with their little cardboard, castle with the, I'm sorry, but some of those projects were basically for the parents, I'm telling you, and I wasn't gonna do it. Anyway, going into this, may seem daunting and overwhelming, but I promise you, you can do this, and it's not as daunting as you think. The most important piece of advice I think I can give you is to have a positive attitude going into this. And when you feel like you've been forced into something, it's very easy to get resentful of the whole thing. But I promise you, it will not do you any favors if you can't get past that, because if we're constantly looking back and say, I just want things the way they were, I just want things the way they were, I just want things the way they were, you'll never move forward. If you have forward-thinking vision and you think, how is this going to be moving forward? How is this going to affect my future? How can I structure this so that it has a positive outcome for our future? If you're forward-thinking in this, I promise you, you will have a better outcome. So there's a video by the Minimal Mom that I highly recommend, I'll link it below, where she talks about that whole mentality. And they did a study back in the 70s with a group of people that were let go from Bell Telecom, I think is what it was called. Anyway, back when they had to, they figured out they were a monopoly and they had to divide that company up, and a lot of people lost their jobs. Anyway, I won't go into detail there, but I will link it below. I highly recommend watching that. Attitude is everything, truly. And your kids may be resentful too. So have a talk with your kids. Make it fun. Talk about how much fun it's going to be. Encourage them to, instead of, this is just how it is and I don't like it either, very tempting. That would be me. I'd have to really work on not doing that, because that's something that I would do. You're going to do this, you're going to like it. That doesn't work. So, anyway, attitude is everything. Try to go into this with the best attitude you possibly can. And do it afraid. If you're afraid, then just do it afraid. Because I assure you, once you get into it, you'll find a rhythm. You'll find out what works for you and your family, and all of that will just melt away. Don't let it paralyze you, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because it really, really can if you let it. So don't let it. Find a community. That's one of the biggest things too. Find a community where, even if it's just one person that you can go to when you're having a bad day, or you need, find a veteran homeschooler if you can, at least, or, heck, find someone who may be in the same boat as you and just go down the path of homeschooling together, somebody that you can, bounce ideas off of and go to when you're having a bad day, and even go to when you're having a great day and say, this really worked for me and we had a great day, whatever. You need a community. I promise you, you need it. Facebook is a great place to start, and a lot of times local homeschool groups will have a community in your area, but find a community, and it's really, really important. And start slow. I mean, right now, I can tell you right now that these curriculum vendors are struggling to get stuff out. I've been waiting 2 weeks for a curriculum to ship that was in stock, and it hadn't shipped yet, and they're probably 2 or 3 days away from shipping it. And then I've got to worry about shipping delays, because from what I understand, the postal service is overloaded. So if you don't have your curriculum yet, if you haven't ordered yet, just know there are going to be delays in many areas. Many vendors are having issues. So start slow. You don't need a curriculum to start, I promise you, you don't. Find out where your kids are at. Take time to explore, figure out what their learning style is. Figure out what your teaching style is. You know, chances are your learning style is pretty much like how you teach. Or maybe you're just a really A-type personality, but you have kids that are really artsy-fartsy and they're just sort of like la 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 la, and you know, you're gonna end up doing this if you can't come to a happy medium, right? Make sure that you're taking all of those things into consideration. And regardless of what curriculum you have or you get, you can tailor anything to their learning style. If their curriculum requires a lot of reading, but they're auditory learners, then have them read it out loud, or you can read it out loud to them. I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can. If they need more kinesthetic options, then get a bouncy ball and they can sit on the bouncy ball and they can bounce while they read. There's lots of things you can do to tailor any curriculum to their learning style. So just keep that in mind, but it's very important. I have a visual learner. I have one who has auditory processing delays, which I had no idea about when we first started this journey. I was just dumbfounded as to why he hated me reading aloud to him, like hated it. He couldn't remember a single thing I would read to him, and he hated them. Or my other kids loved read alouds. So come to find out, he's got auditory processing delay, and he's extremely visual. So when he learned to read, he just reads it himself. You know, if it has an auditory, if it's online and it has, you know, it's reading to him, we turn that little thing off and he reads it himself. You know, we've been able to work around the deficits, and he's totally flourished. And I really think to myself how horrible it would have been for him to be in a school environment where, you know, he's got a teacher in front of a class giving lecture, you know, type lessons, and, you know, in one ear, out the other. He probably would have been in remedial classes. He's ahead of grade level in most things. So just know that you are their best teacher. You can be with them one-on-one. You can figure out, you know, who they are and how to teach them the most effectively, and it's going to be a beautiful journey. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. Go into this being flexible. You know, every kid is different. Every kid needs a different schedule in many cases. You know, little ones tend to be early risers. You can work with them or play with them, let the others sleep in, and then when they go down for a nap, you can teach them. You know, you can teach in the evening if you have to work. There's so many things you can do. You just be flexible. Schooling, homeschooling does not have to be 8 to 3. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It can be, every kid can even be on a different schedule. You know, this group of kids can be having quiet time and reading to themselves while you're working one-on-one with this student, and vice versa. I mean, so many things you can do. So just know that if you stay flexible, if you're having an off day, if the kids are having an off day, you know, take it outside. Go to the library. Go on a field trip. Go get ice cream. You know, shut it down for the day. Whatever you need to do. Watch a documentary. You know, there were days in school where I know my teacher didn't feel like teaching that day, so she just stuck on a video for us to watch, and we all laid our head down and went to sleep, right? So it happens even in school. So my point is, if you just are flexible and work with your kids' rhythms, your own rhythm, your family's rhythm, and do what you need to do to make it work without worrying about whether or not you're doing it right, then it'll make for a much better homeschool experience. And be realistic. You know, we all see the vlogs, the blogs, the Pinterest, homeschooling, you know, posts, and we want to mimic that, you know, but we have to understand, and we know logically, we all know that what's being portrayed is their best selves, right? In some cases, it's not even just their best selves, it's their fantasy self, right? Not even close to reality. So be realistic. Know you're going to have some bad days. Know there's going to be off days. Know there's going to be times when you're going to lose your cool because you've told your kid you know, you try to teach a concept, you know, 20 times and they're still not getting it. You know, I mean, give yourself some grace. if you go down that road and you get frustrated and you know it's, you know, then apologize, be willing to, you know, apologize and say, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't mean to lose my cool. We'll get through this, you know, I'll help you through it. Whatever it is, whatever the scenario, just be realistic and know that there are going to be days like that. And there may be days where you just don't feel like teaching. You know, maybe maybe you're hormonal. I'm going through menopause, so hormonal is my middle name right now. So, you know, just be realistic. And then going back to flexibility, you know, be flexible, and I promise you, you'll get through it. And you won't screw it up. I promise. You're not going to screw this up. You are going to be the best teacher for your children because you know them better than anybody. And the more you work with them one-on-one, the more you'll figure out the best way to teach them, and you'll get more done in an hour than they could get all day at school. I promise you, because you're one-on-one with them. And they're in a classroom of 20 to 30 people, and they can't get that one-on-one time from their teacher every day. It's just not realistic, right? So the next thing I want to say is just to understand that learning happens everywhere. You can have a picnic in the backyard and bring some schoolwork out there, or do some read alouds. You can go to the library. You can go to the park. You can school in the car. If you know you're going to be on a road trip, or you're going on a field trip and you're going to be in the car for an hour, they can do schoolwork while they're in the car. You can watch, if you have a DVD player in the car, you can put on a video or put on some audio teaching. There's all kinds of things you can do to maximize the time that you're teaching in very creative ways, right? So just know that learning happens everywhere. You can bake together in the kitchen and teach all kinds of things through that kind of activity. So just know that learning happens everywhere. Don't stress so much about your curriculum choices. If you're on a tight budget and you're having to source resources, you know, go to the thrift store. You can find workbooks at the thrift store galore. You can go to Walmart if your kids are younger, and you can get workbooks, all-in-one workbooks that go from pre-K all the way up through second grade. You can do, Evan Moore has workbooks all over the place. You can download free worksheets. There are free resources online. There's all kinds of stuff. It's not as much about the curriculum. In fact, you know, take some time. If to de-school your kids, they're used to being at school, doing school from 8 to 3 every single day. So take the time to really learn your kids' personalities and how they learn and what they know. You know, see if you can figure out where their gaps are. Make sure they have their math facts down. You know, have them write little paragraphs. You can go to the dollar store and get these little die that have the dry erase die, and you can write topics on them and roll the die, and that's their topic, and have them write a paragraph. And then you can see what their spelling's like, what their sentence structure's like, what their, you know, if they freeze up and if they're not able to get their thoughts from here to here. In that case, maybe they can dictate to you and you can write it down, you know, and work on baby steps to try to get them to where they can get their thoughts on paper. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do without curriculum that will help you figure out where your kids are at. And you may find that you get your curriculum and they're ahead of, you know, where they need to be in the curriculum. You know, you can skip some lessons. Or you may find that they need a little bit of review before they dive into the curriculum that you purchased. So whatever it is, don't stress out about the curriculum. Don't stress out about what you've chosen. Did I make the right choice? Did I make the right choice? I don't want to make the wrong choice. You know, don't stress out over that. It all works. You can tweak all of it to make it work. All of it. And you know, if it really is just ends up being a real dread, then you can try something else. But for the most part, we've had curriculum that didn't work, but we were able to make it work throughout the year. Like we just, at the end of the year, I was like, I think I'm gonna look for something else for next year. And I would just tweak it and modify it and do whatever I needed to do to make, or supplement it, or whatever I needed to do to make it work for that year. You can make anything work, I promise you. Curriculum is a tool. You don't have to worry about going from start to finish through every piece of curriculum that you get. You just don't. You know, it's a tool. If you find that it's really dry and you're not enjoying it, you know, use it for the key parts, use it for the pictures, read some of it aloud, and then go find something that really will pique their interest, maybe on the same topic, especially if we're dealing with things like history or science. You can get living books, you can watch documentaries, you can do a project, there's all kinds of things you can do. Just consider it a tool. And if you don't get it completely down from front to back, it doesn't matter. The last piece of advice I want to give is to just don't compare your homeschool to other homeschools. Don't compare yourself to other homeschool moms. Don't compare your kids to other kids, and don't compare your kids to each other. Every child is different. Every child learns at a different pace. Every child has different strengths and weaknesses. You have different strengths and weaknesses, and everybody's got different personalities. So it's really, really easy to compare yourself to other people or compare your kids to other kids and whatnot. Just don't do it. It can cause one of two problems. It can either make you feel bad or guilty because you don't feel like you're measuring up to, Susie and Susie's homeschool over there, or Susie's kids or whatever. Or if you feel like, I'm doing a great job and they're not doing half of the stuff we're doing, it can make you prideful. And both are dangerous. And so just don't do it. If you find it's really easy to, because everybody puts themselves out there. There's so many resources online where you can see other homeschools. But again, remember, they could be projecting their fantasy selves or their very best selves or their staged selves and not their real selves. And then same thing, when you're talking to other homeschool families, typically you're not hearing about all the bad things. You're just hearing about all the good things. So just resist the temptation to do that. Please, you are the best teacher for your kids. Nobody else loves your kids more than you do. Nobody else is going to invest in your kids like you will. You cannot screw this up. There's a million different ways to homeschool. In fact, I highly recommend this book right here. It's called So You're Thinking About Homeschooling. It's by Lisa Whelchel, and she's got 15 different families that go over how they homeschool in their home. And it covers every type of homeschooler out there, from traditional to classical to Charlotte Mason, eclectic, unschoolers. It covers all of them. And I guarantee you're going to find at least one family in here that you can relate to. And basically they give you a picture of what it's like to homeschool in their home. And so when you find a style of homeschooling that you resonate with, that you feel like would work with your family, then you can then have some direction in how to tailor your homeschool to make it work for you. So I do highly recommend this. And then other book I highly recommend, and I'll have to put a picture of it up here because I've loaned it out. It's called Discovering Your Child's Learning Style, and it has a test in there, an aptitude test that you could take. If you have younger kids, you just take it for them because you know your kids really well and they won't know how to answer some of the questions. But you can answer the questions for them based on your kid's personality or whatever. But the older kids can do their own. And it has all these different questions in there that help you figure out your child's learning style. I highly, highly recommend it. I do recommend the earlier editions because I've read in the reviews that some people got books that didn't have a test in it and they had to go online to try to download it, and then the link didn't work. So try to get an earlier edition or go to the library. See if your library has it. That's where I found mine. I mean, that's where I first found it, I should say. I first found it at the library, and then I ended up buying myself a copy off of Amazon. So I will link it below, but check your library and see if they've got it, and take a look at it and see what you think, because truly it validated things that I suspected, but weren't completely sure about. And I wish I had found this resource early on in my homeschool journey, and it would have saved me a lot of trial and error. So that's why I'm recommending it. So anyway, this is not the first time I've recorded this video, and I kept making it way, way, way too long. So hopefully I've condensed this down enough. If you have any questions, you can go to the About section in my channel, and my email is there. Feel free to email me questions. Ask questions in the comments. My channel's small enough I can still answer all the questions that come to me through those avenues. And I'm more than happy to help any way that I can. I might even do a Q&A video if I get enough questions that I feel will be beneficial to answer on my channel. I could probably do a video on every single one of these topics but I just don't have the time to go that deep. So please know, you're not alone. We are all in this together. You can do this, and I wish you the best homeschool year ever. Thank you so much for visiting. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.